Hey there, dear listeners. This is a sample from the upcoming episode on Technofascism, which was such a wild ride. It is currently available on Patreon. If you'd like to get early access to this and other upcoming episodes, please consider subscribing today via patreon.com/nicemangoes. The show is entirely listener funded, and I'm a one-person team. It takes a lot of time, research, production, editing, clipping, music making, etc. to create the more specialized content, especially like the miniseries. I know, plenty of people have been asking and waiting for a new episode of my miniseries on Sam Harris, Woken Up, especially as his content gets more and more unhinged and detached from reality about the situation in Gaza. I have been working on an episode for a while, but unfortunately I don't have the budget to allocate as much time as one of those deep dives requires to creating them as frequently as I'd like, so it's a bit of a slower process. You'll just have to bear with me. But also another part of it is that I've just been so disgusted and sickened by what I've heard. It's felt a bit paralyzing, to be honest. Anyway, I do think it's important to compile and document the kinds of horrendous propaganda he's been pumping out. But I'm just one person with a limited amount of time. However, you, the listeners, can certainly help expedite such projects by supporting the show via Patreon. There are thousands and thousands of people who listen to the show, but only an incredibly small percentage help to keep the show going. So if you enjoy it, do consider supporting today. But even more broadly, though, I'd say be kind to your leftist content creators these days. These are incredibly, incredibly demoralizing times, and if anything, we need a stronger, louder, more robust left to combat the heavily astroturfed right wing and also the mealy-mouthed centrist bullshit that we see so much of, right? Anywho, I hope you enjoy this little sample. This was such a fun episode. And before I forget, do please leave a podcast review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. All of that kind of stuff helps, and there's the added bonus of pissing off all the racist, misogynist, skull measurers, and other IDW types that, hate this show. Anyway, enjoy this little sample.
I had a fantasy a long while ago that people would end up wearing glasses, like the Google glasses, that would be illegal to take off. And that you'd be mandated to see what people wanted you to see. It was their right to be presented to you in the manner that they chose to present themselves. That would be illegal to take off. You'd be mandated to see what people wanted you to see.
When the power goes out, we are all reduced to our biological selves. So I don't think there is actually anything to fight over. One of these worlds has primacy and the other is an add-on, and this is not debatable.
And so that process of being hooked into the web, you'd be mandated to see what people wanted you to see.
The basic structure of civilization coming apart in front of our eyes, which I really believe that it is.
Do you want a self-driving car that preferentially avoids people of color? That preferentially avoids people of color.
Democratization of communication enables a parasitism
an interesting phenomenon where technology is going to force us to admit to ourselves that we know right from wrong in a way that many people imagine isn't possible.
Being hooked into the web.
The basic structure of civilization coming apart in front of our eyes, which I really believe that it is. Civilization coming apart in front of our eyes.
Hello everyone, welcome to episode 78. I've got a very special guest here with me, Paris Marx from the excellent Tech Won't Save Us podcast, and I thought who better to have on to discuss the ever-growing intersection between tech and fascism. Hi Paris.
Hello, it's great to chat with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so honored to have you on because I'm a huge fan of your show. And I don't know if you read this story. I forget this guy from Coinbase, I think. I forget his name. Maybe Balaji or something like that.
Oh, Balaji Srinivasan.
Yeah, I think that might be it. But
I think he was involved. He was somewhat involved with Coinbase. I don't think he is any longer.
Yeah. And recently there was a story about him talking about tech Zionism, how he wanted to did you hear about that?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. I think it's fair to say that Balaji is one of these people who, in the tech industry has had this really right-wing turn. I don't know what his politics used to be like and if he used to be more kind of, a lot of these people were libertarians, but in the sense that they were kind of socially progressive, but, fiscally conservative, this kind of framing that we often hear a lot of and are supposed to believe is a very normal sort of a thing. Someone like Balaji is basically saying, the wokes and the liberals and stuff have taken over San Francisco, and we kind of need to take it back if we want to, create a better society and have flourishing and stuff like that. And he has this framing that I believe comes from his book Network State, though I haven't read the book, where he basically talks about tech people and people aligned with the tech industry as the grays, and Republicans or, conservatives and fascists and stuff are the reds, which, comes from the weird color scheme in American politics that doesn't align with how the colors usually go when we talk about these things in other countries. Of course, because the reds would usually be the communists. But and then, of course, there are the blues, who are the Democrats and people on the left and, various activists and things like that, right? And in his framing, he's basically saying that he wants the grays, the tech people, to take over San Francisco by aligning with the police.
Many blues truly hate cops, right? That's an opportunity. Blues hate cops. Grays should embrace the police, okay? All in on the police. What does that mean? That's, as I said, banquets. That means every policeman's son, daughter, wife, cousin, sibling, whatever, should get a job at a tech company in security. Okay, you start to actually merge the gray and police social networks.
In order to use the power of the police to kind of force the blues out of the city.
So ethnically cleanse.
Yeah, exactly. And he says this very openly, right? and he I believe he argues that he has been personally ethnically cleansed from San Francisco. And so now he wants to ethnically cleanse the blues.
Again, I can't understate or overstate rather how much resistance there's going to be to this. Insane levels of howling resistance to having streets that are clean and hobos that are kept out, and especially blues that are kept out. And so now you have to use the private square to raise the cost on blues. Again, Elon did this. He made Twitter an unwelcoming place for traditional mass media. He made it a welcoming place for new media. Gray zones need to be unwelcoming places, and now suddenly blues are, for the first time in their life, paying a social penalty for supporting absolute chaos. So you put all that together, and you have a movement supported by a global network to take back territory in the city, floor by floor, street by street, block by block, policeman by policeman, person by person, tribe by tribe, small business by small business. What have I not mentioned basically once in all of this so far?
Elections.
Elections! Exactly. Take total control of your neighborhood, push out all blues, tell them they're as unwelcome as just as blues ethnically cleanse me out of San Francisco. Like, push out all blues, and then you'll easily win.
And he says that, like, the Greys, when they take over, should, like, actively run anti-blue propaganda and should, like, find ways to, you know, force the blues out of the city. And you very clearly see that in tech as well, right? Where a lot of these people who often, you know, campaigned for gay rights, like same-sex marriage and things like that, and were vocally, openly supportive of it, are now very clearly opposed to trans rights and extending rights to trans people and, you know, equality and just, you know, not treating them terribly as they have been treated for so long. You know, obviously you see that most prominently, I think, with Elon Musk, where he is kind of openly transphobic, has changed policies on Twitter so that you can harass trans people if you want to. And of course, you know, has a trans daughter himself and still does all this stuff.
I wanted to quickly talk about the absolute worst part of the intersection of tech and fascism, which is how we see it being used in Israel today. And the reports of, like, the different AI systems that they have to generate targets, like, faster than humans ever could. Like, I think they have a system called Lavender that generates human targets, and like, I think a human spends like about 20 seconds to just approve or not approve, and like the errors are...
It's basically just to make sure that the target isn't a woman, because Hamas doesn't have women fighters.
Right.